Now, because we've got a nice profile put together by producer Dion Potgieter on your career. So take a look at this, Stan.
Fighting out of the red corner, wearing...
On the 3rd of November 1973, Arnold Taylor clinched the WBA bantamweight world title in one of the most brutal battles ever seen in a boxing ring.
And left. Extraordinary quickness which enabled the man to come back.
This war of attrition which raged between Taylor and the soon-to-be-disposed of world champion Romeo Anaya was in itself also a baptism of fire for the third man in the ring. It was Stanley Christodoulou's first world title fight as a referee.
It was one of the first world titles I've seen, and it was an unbelievable fight. It was a classic fight. Arnold Taylor had been down a few times, and he came from behind to knock out Romeo Anaya. It was at the Rand Stadium, I remember it clearly. And if I can remember, I sat second row from the front and I only paid 15 Rand, so it was something special. And for a South African to win a world title in those days was extra special.
They were bringing in a neutral referee, and unfortunately, or fortunately for me I should say, the man wouldn't come. The British Boxing Board of Control felt it would prejudice the man's relationship with the WBC, whatever, and they were obliged to use a local referee. I had already been officiating for 10 years. Don't forget, I started in 1963. This was 73 now. And I'd been in the ring with a few world champions in non-title events. The great world lightweight champion, Joe Brown. I did about 4 or 5 of his fights in this country. When he fought Joe Ngidi, I refereed one and I judged one. He fought Levi Mardi, he fought another great fighter that we had here in this country. So I'd been in the ring with some of these world champions, but never a championship bout. And when I got the opportunity, you can imagine the excitement and the butterflies. But when that bell rang for the first round, you get so absorbed in the fight. I'll never forget, you know, I don't even recall until afterwards the excitement round by round. It was so exciting that you get your concentration is such that you don't worry about outside distractions. But it was really a great feeling.
Taylor's last chance after his man. Taylor in again. Measuring up. Taylor looking for an opening. Anaya dominated. Down goes Anaya. Taylor's arms are up. The count is in. It's 7. It's 8. He's checking with the timekeeper. And Taylor is dancing about there excitedly. The crowd has gone wild. The champion is down. He's out. And South Africa, after 23.5 years, have again produced a world champion.
Well, I think he showed in that very fight, way back in 1973, that he was already a world-class referee. And the fact that he was chosen so many times to referee thereafter showed that he definitely had the qualities of a world title referee.
You know, Stan was at every single tournament that I can remember. And in those years, when I first started, you could have like 50, 60 tournaments a year. And Stan was at all of them. It didn't matter if it was Uncle Tom's Hall or any little hall in Soweto or Guatemala. Stan was always there, and he was approachable. So I really think he did a lot for development as well.
Officiating in his 4th world title fight and only the 2nd one as a referee, Stan stepped into the ring on the 22nd of May 1976 for yet another legendary ring battle. This one was between light heavyweight world champion Victor Galindez and the challenger Richie Cates.
In the 3rd round, there was an accidental collision of heads, and Galindez grabbed his right eye and turned and walked towards the corner in agony. And, you know, it happened so fast. I actually saw it. I actually saw them come in there, and it wasn't a deliberate act, but it was a collision of heads. And what I did immediately was to call stop and apply the no-foul rule, which was applicable at that time, where you could allow a fight to be stopped for 5 minutes while they worked on the cut. Today, that doesn't exist anymore. You can't do that. But the fans and the reporters at ringside weren't aware of all this fuss that was going on. So the ring was, you know, it was, everybody jumped in the ring as though the fight was over. There was total confusion. But I knew it was happening. I had doctors there at the time, 2 very good doctors on the commission. And they came along and examined the cut. And we had discussions there and allowed them to repair the cut. And then I was able to clear the ring. And that's, I think, what gave me the opportunity to be acknowledged, because by keeping my composure, being cool and knowing what I wanted to do, I got the ring cleared and the fight continued. Well, then it was a war from them. And I think you remember it was one of the most brutal fights ever. They called Victor Galindez the animal. Well, the animal, the savageness came out of the man. I mean, it was unbelievable. I remember seeing reporters at ringside later basically getting up and throwing punches in the air. Some very prominent guys. Can you imagine being there? You have to be neutral and watching the fight. The excitement was electrified. I mean, it was a total It was unbelievable. To the extent that when, you know, at one stage I remember the blood was pouring out, I shouted stop to examine the blood, the eye, and the blood stopped. I said, box on. It was like a little water pistol, you know, you shoot blood came out of the eye, and I don't know what it was, and then he looked at me and he shook his head, what the hell are you doing now? And they continued. And there were times when I got him to break them, he would use my shirt like a big towel. It was unbelievable how the instinct that he had to, and the presence of mind to do that. It didn't bother me, you know, being covered in blood like that, because it was such a great battle, and getting caught up in a fight of that magnitude was unbelievable. And it was one round, I mean, I remember Gelindus had him in the corner and he was beating him, throwing punches from every angle. I mean, it was unbelievable. That you don't often see in boxing. And Cates, on the other hand, I was very fortunate to be in the ring with two greats, was a classic boxer, one of the best lefts. If you remember when he beat Pierre Fourie, he out-jabbed Fourie, was a good fighter himself. So he, at times, also threw some low blows, and they were, one or two were really deliberate. Again, I could have taken away points, but I didn't. I didn't think that it was befitting at that time to do so. And Gelindus was in agony, he was bending downwards, and he punished him more. And then coming into the 15th and last round, this was the most dramatic ending ever in a championship fight. Why? Because Gelindus, you thought, would just go ahead and win on points. And in the dying seconds, in the last 11 seconds, he came with these left hooks. It was like a 3, 1, 2, 3, put him down. And when I counted and I scissored out, it was exactly 2 minutes, 59 seconds on the clock. The clock stopped, the timekeeper's clock. I've had one more second and I would have been gone to the scorecards. Despite the fact he would have still won. Victor Gelindus was ahead on points. That's not the issue. The issue was this man wanted to go out after giving such a brave display of boxing on a points defeat rather than a knockout. So it had everything. It had all the ingredients of one of the great classics of all time.
It was a matter of knowing exactly when to stop a fight, you know, and when to allow a fight to continue. And Stan does have that ability to move in close, to look you in the eye, to know when it's going to happen or when it's not going to happen. And I think he was gifted. There's no question about that.
2 world title fights later, Stan found himself travelling to Spain to referee his first world title out of South Africa. To make things even tougher, it was his first occasion as a scoring referee.
It was a difficult fight because it was the Spaniard was Duran, José Duran, who was defending the title against an Argentinian, Miguel Castellini. And there were 2 judges and myself. So in the first time scoring referee, you can imagine there was a lot involved because this referee, as you know, does not score in this country. And the rule is better as it is today. So it takes a lot of your concentration because now you have to mark the scorecard. And then at that fight, you didn't have to hand in the slip copies. You kept your own card. So another round, you'd walk to the corner, take out the card, and then mark who you've declared the winner for that round. And at the end of the fight, you hand in the card. I found that it takes a little bit away from your performance in other areas because now you're looking at all the scoring blows and certain things you could miss. And also when you mark the card, you're not observing the corners. But there's a lot of strain on you. That fight was a hard-fought fight. Castellini got cut out of call. He was bleeding profusely, and I allowed the fight to continue. The Spaniards could see their man was losing, and immediately the decision was announced. It was a split decision. They first announced the one from Spain, who gave it to his home the champion. The neutral was an Italian guy who gave it to the new champion, and my card was announced last. I tell you something, you should have seen those flying missiles. Man, I want to tell you, you should have seen me move. I tell you, I ducked in the ring, and they were throwing missiles, chairs. It was frightening. They hurled everything at me, you know. So it was quite an experience to be a scoring official as well in the first fight.
In his 20th world title fight, Stan refereed the retrospective super fight between Thomas the Hitman Hearns and the legendary Pepino Cuevas. Stan went on record at the time predicting that the then little-known Hearns, who disposed of Cuevas in 2 blistering rounds, would go on to win 5 world titles, a prediction the Hitman lived up to. Another controversial split decision with Stan as scoring referee came in his 22nd world title fight. This time the bout was between featherweight world champion Eusebio Pedrosa and Rocky Lockridge.
Moments ago that he used it up in the 14th and just can't do it now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a split decision.
A split decision.
Judge Rodolfo Hill scores the fight. 149 Pedrosa, 139 Lockridge. Judge Harold Letterman scores the fight. 144 Lockridge, 142 Pedrosa. Referee Stanley Christodoulou scores the fight. 147 Pedroza, 141 Lockridge. Winner and still WBA featherweight champion, Eusebio Pedroza.
Well,
I'm wrong again, Tim. I'm wrong again.
And well, you said the champion would win the fight, but you didn't think he won it in the ring here.
That's exactly right.
A split decision. The Panamanian judge, the South African referee voted for the champion, and the judge from New Jersey voted for Lockridge. We voted for Lockridge. The fans voted for Lockridge here at ringside, but the champion remains Pedroza.
It was the first time ever that the commentators, it was held at New Jersey at the Playboy Club, the real Playboy with the bunny girls and everything else. I've still got a beautiful plaque they gave me, caught live at the Playboy Club, the little bunny tail. You know, my wife wasn't impressed with that as it turned out, but anyway, at this ringside, they equipped the ringsiders with certain electronic equipment, and they could then press the button of their favorite. Now, Lockridge is from New Jersey, so the ringsiders would then, at the end of the fight, apparently press a button, and the two commentators were well-respected gentlemen, got carried away with the percentage poll that was reflected on the screen, okay? Now, I don't know, I'm just doing a fight, and I'm looking at two individuals, like I tell you, 15-round championship fight, and I had it 4 points. There was a mistake in when they announced it. They said it was 6 points, it wasn't. And they had one official that was from New Jersey, he had it 1 point in favor of Lockridge. But you can watch that fight over and over again, and they even admitted afterwards that the commentators got too carried away with the percentage poll that was reflected on the screen. And that's where they were sort of going with the majority. Because one round, for example, I watched it, I've got it on tape, Pedroza was overwhelming winner in that round. It should have been 85% in his favor. It was a 52% or 54% percentage that voted in favor of the crowd. That's the first and last time they used that system, because it was a big scandal that they were influenced by the fans.
On the 3rd of October 1982, Stan refereed his first world heavyweight title. It was also the last bout he would fulfill the function as scoring referee. The combatants, Mike Weaver and James Quick Tillis. It was a proud moment for Stan, as he has always regarded the heavyweight division as the blue ribbon of boxing. It was to be another 15 years before he refereed another heavyweight title fight, that one being the heavyweight unification bout between Evander Holyfield and Michael Moorer in 1997. But it hasn't all been roses for the prolific boxing man from South Africa. On one occasion when he was in Thailand, a promoter failed to produce the fighters' purses before the fight. This led to the fight being cancelled and a riot broke out. Stan had her hot-footed out of there as the fans burned the boxing ring to the ground. Tragically, the challenger never did get a chance to fight for the title again. However, this hasn't been Stan's most dangerous situation.
The hardest fight I refereed was in South Korea between Soon Young Chung, the #1 challenger for the junior featherweight championship, and Ricardo Cardona. It was so hard, I tell you, it was one of the most difficult fights ever, because I was a scoring referee and I was perspiring profusely. What they did, they turned the air conditioning system down. They said it didn't work, whatever the system was, and it was trying to, maybe it could have been genuine. But it was difficult in that it was a rough and tumble fight, and the Korean was using difficult and dirty tactics. Well, I didn't take my points, which I could have done. At one stage, at the end of the 11th round, the chief second tried to stab me with a pair of scissors because I had warned the Korean for a certain infringements. And I then stopped the action at the start of the 12th. I had him dismissed from the corner, and the fight continued. In the fun analysis, I had at 1 point in favor of the champion from the Colombia, Ricardo Cardona, and the other two judges had a 2 and 2, all neutral. So although it was unanimous, the cops had to escort us out of the stadium, because these two had fought previously, and it was a riot. It was a big riot there.
You have to decide in a split second sometimes what to do. That's another thing about Stan, his decisiveness. He's never caught in two minds, and it can be, sometimes it can be easy, but sometimes it can be very hard.
He takes no nonsense from either side. I think he stamps his authority early on, actually before the fight, when he reads the rules to the guys. He doesn't take nonsense. If you hit low below the belt, or you're hitting with elbows or headbutts, he'll pull you aside straight away and say, listen, this is out. I'm not going to take any more of this, otherwise you're out of the ring. So I think he really knows his game, and that's been his stamp of authority all the way along. And that's probably his most outstanding thing, that he doesn't allow anyone to get away with nonsense for too long.
He has shown the quality of being a good referee. A good referee is where the fight will progress, the fight will be well controlled, but the referee will not be intrusive. He will not be there. actually imagine that the fight is going on without a referee. So that's the type of person that he had strived to be, that he must not catch the limelight, rather the boxers themselves must be the ones who are catching the limelight, so that's what a good referee will be all about. And if you're doing a judging, you have to call the way you see the fight, irrespective of what the locals are doing or what other things are happening around you. For you to be a real judge, you have to, that's what he says he always strives for, to be able to come out straight with what he believes he saw, and not what he thinks or what he thinks the fans want.
Stan once again displayed his ability to read a fight well in 1982's Fight of the Year, Aaron Pryor versus Alexis Arguella. His handling of this classic battle reaffirmed to the international boxing world that he was indeed one of the best referees in the business. In 1983 came the super fight between two all-time greats, marvelous Marvin Hagler and Roberto Duran.
Of officials, and because this is an international fight and everybody moving for an edge, there was an official from Montreal, one of the judges tonight, that had those people objected to because he had allowed in some other fight the champion to bully and rough up an opponent, and of course Duran has been known to do that. This man, however, is considered one of the best referees in the world, and you may recall that he refereed the first and the great fight between Aaron Pryor and Alexis Arguella.
There was a lot of controversy because, you know, word got out that I'm a South African, and all sorts of political things that happened. But fortunately, even in that time, in that era, where my reputation was taken into consideration, they took cognizance of what I was able to accomplish. They wanted to Vegas. Vegas is a very difficult state. They only appoint local referees. In fact, it's a good point you raised. In Las Vegas, I was the last neutral referee ever to officiate there. You can check on it. They don't use any other referees other than the local referees. I've got the distinction of being the last neutral, and especially from outside the United States, I don't think anybody's ever done that. They've had neutral referees, judges, but not a referee. So that was the added pressure on the local guys. Felt it, here come, you know. But a fight of that, there was a Panamanian versus an American, and they had to get somebody neutral. In fact, they brought in 6 other referees to come and take that fight, and then there was a meeting with the commission. And I was the regional selection, and they went with me, which was great.
I remember when I was started professional boxing in 1975, the boxing commission was very small. They were downtown in a small office, and they grew and they grew. And I think Stan did a lot, you know, for South African boxing with his experience and knowledge and connections he had overseas. He got a lot of local boys ratings, you know, world ratings. And even world title fights. He, you know, he helped a lot of promoters in that way too, to get their boys world title fights.
In that stage in '84, there wasn't a lot of fights. I was actually thinking of retiring, getting out of boxing. And one night Willie came to my house. I was busy making security gates, and he just said that Stanley is going to organize me a world title fight. He apparently, that fight with Cassio and what's his name, Pierre Kutsa, was signed. And then unfortunately for me, Pierre lost against a guy in Durban, Robert Denton, I think. And then I got the fight. Now for what he did for that fight for myself, there's not enough words for me to thank him. I don't know why he thought about me. There was always guys like Johnny Lapoy that could go down to cruiserweight. I was a light heavyweight. Why me? But I thank him for it. And I'm sure if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had the world title fight.
Stan also played a significant part in other South African fighters' World Championship realizations, including Peter Matabula's, Brian Mitchell's and Vianney Bungu's. As a credit to the man's integrity and impartiality, he's also been assigned as an official in many world title bouts featuring his own countrymen.
I thought Stan was a great referee, a great judge. He did a couple of world title fights of mine. He's my world title fight. And I had confidence in him. I knew he knew his job, he knew what to do. So going into the ring at, a ref can make a big difference in a world title fight. So when Stan was in there, he knew me, he knew how I fought, so it made a great difference to me. It gave me a great bit of confidence knowing that I had a competent guy in the ring as well.
As all men in seats of power, Stan has had many detractors over the years, but even the sternest of those has acknowledged Stan's unswaying honesty and professionalism inside the ring. He's received numerous awards over the years, including recognition from President Mandela, as well as being voted the WBA's Referee of the Year 2 years running. In a career spanning over 6,000 fights and 100 world title bouts, 86 as referee and 14 as judge, as well as serving as South Africa's boxing executive director for many years, what does Stan see as his biggest moment?
Firstly, it's going to just deviate a little bit from the refereeing aspect, and that is when boxing became totally integrated in this country. And I say that because that was one of the accomplishments I felt very proud to be involved with. When I say I played a part, it was the late Judge Klopper, Mike Morton, the late Mike, and of course we approached the government, and when we were able to get that first black-white fight on the road, everything just followed. That to me was an accomplishment I'll always cherish and remember. On the refereeing aspect, the fact that I was so privileged and lucky to have been in the ring that night when Taylor fought Anaya. It wasn't meant to be. The referee, things happen, fate happens, and that was the start. You know, it went through, everybody accepted it, and worldwide people start taking note of your performance or what have you. And then the Cates Gelinders fight. Till today, it's indelibly inscribed in my mind and everybody else I talked to, and it's like 23 years ago. So those were the breaks that made me, and I'm very grateful for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, a record night for our referee tonight as well. Your referee is Stan Christodoulou, and tonight Stan is officiating in his 100th world title fight.
I think he should be remembered, well, the story tells itself. To referee 100 world titles, you've got to be remembered as a great referee, same as we now looking at some of our fighters and saying, gee, these guys were fantastic. Vicky Tawil was fantastic, or Brian Mitchell, or Vianney Bungu, or Baby Jake. They'll always be remembered as great fighters. I think there's no doubt that Stan will always be remembered as a world-class referee, a great, great referee that this country had.
Well, as a referee, is one of the best in the world. I mean, the man has refereed about 100 fights already of world titles. I mean, he was there during the days of Van Hagler, Duran. The man has got experience.
Having refereed world titles in every weight division in 20 countries worldwide and numerous local super fights, Stan has undoubtedly proved himself an undeniable great and perhaps the most recognised face in South African boxing over the last 30 years.
He's got to work his way into the fight. Johnny Depoy's down. He's prepared his left hook there and he's down. He seems to be writhing in pain there. It's almost over. Almost over. The Stan Christodoulou is on the count of 6. He's just made it count.
He's wobbling. And referee Christodoulou is going to go on. That was a tremendous attack. And down is goes Dupoy. Oh, he won't make it. He's getting up. He's got no heart. He's got up. I think Christodoulou must let it go on. He's talking to him now. Christodoulou stopped it.
Whatever direction this charismatic man's career takes from here, his mark as South Africa's Mr. Boxing can never be erased.
I think Stan should be remembered as a world champion referee.